Happy quarantine, everyone. I thought I may as well do lots more videos if I can for my massive amounts of followers to be entertained while they're bored at home. Ha, just kidding. I only have 10 subscribers, but I went up from 8 to 10 the other day, so that's exciting. Whoever you are. Um, I got some more stuff that I've been up to lately and just thought I would get through it quickly. I got 5 items. And limited space on my phone as usual, although it's getting better because I'm getting rid of some old videos and photos that I've been holding on to for a number of months for other projects that I've kind of been working on that I'm completing finally. So I'm able to get some extra stuff off my phone. So I'm actually at a better spot than I have been in a while, but it's still very limited, so I got to keep things concise and not ramble, which I'm not always good at, not rambling. So let's get it started. First up, I found this movie I think at the Dollarama for $4 or whatever. It's called Freaks of Nature. It stars a number of people. Patton Oswalt's in it briefly. Bob Odenkirk, Joan Cusack, all minor roles, but they're in there. Dennis Leary, Vanessa Hudgens plays a more major role, and then some newbies that I'm not really aware of. But it takes place in the town of Dillford, Ohio. I'm not sure if that's a real town or not. And it's kind of weird because there's 3 different species, I guess you'd call them species, I don't know, but living together in Dillford. There's humans, there's vampires, and there are zombies. So it doesn't say why there's these zombies and vampires around and living amongst society like it's no big thing. But that's the situation we're presented with. And but things aren't necessarily perfect between the 3 different factions. There's a bit of unrest or resentment between all 3 kind of groups, I guess. And we are soon after. It opens up with a bit of an action sequence about things going haywire all of a sudden, and very briefly at the start of the movie, and then it rewinds to kind of, when it does that, and it says, this is how that happened, and then the story picks up. So there's 3 teenage high school kids that are kind of the main characters in this movie. There's Dag, Ned, and Petra. All 3 of these kids kind of have links to each other from the past, but as they've grown up and gotten into high school, they've kind of grown apart and gone their separate ways. Dag and Ned were actually good buddies when they were younger, but Dag kind of grew up and got into playing baseball in order to try and impress chicks and go that sort of route. Whereas Ned didn't really grow up. He's maintained kind of his nerd status. He only wanted to hack on computers and do that sort of thing. So they kind of drifted apart. As for Petra, her and Dag used to have some sort of a relationship when they were younger, and they were, put in the closet together at a party and all that sort of thing. But they too drifted apart, and currently Dag is trying to become more popular and bang the most popular girl in school, Lorelai. Ned is kind of invisible and despairing of his life because his parents only pay attention to his older brother Chaz, who is like a budding baseball superstar. And then Petra, in the meantime, has kind of been labeled a slut and doesn't really have any friends, and currently she's trying to woo the kind of bad boy vampire of the school named Milan. I think his name was Milan. So then, all on one night, things start to go a little bit haywire in so many ways. Petra gets bitten by Milan and gets turned into a vampire herself. Ned can't take his home life anymore and goes and talks to a zombie girl from school and says, please bite me, because I don't want to feel any of this emotions anymore. I just want to be kind of a brain dead zombie and just eat brains and not have any of this shit to worry about. And whereas Dag is trying so hard to get with Lorelai, but she only comes over to his house to smoke weed. And then when he gets cock-blocked one night, he finds out that his parents, who are Bob Odenkirk and Joan Cusack, smoke a ton of weed, and it gets all weird. And it's pretty funny. And then, so as Petra becomes a vampire, Ned becomes a zombie, and Dag just tries to figure out what the hell is going wrong with his life. They all come together, and as an alien invasion suddenly invades Dillford. So now you've got humans, zombies, vampires, and aliens. Like, this movie literally has everything I like in it. So then as these three come together all these years later and are forced to deal with their buried pasts and their former friendships, they also figure out what is going on with this alien invasion and how to stop it. And once they figure that out, they then have to reunite, or I guess unite, these three different species in Dilford to fight together as one unit and take down the aliens. So I read reviews that this was a movie that didn't really know what it wanted to be, and I kind of get that, because it's just kind of, certain parts of it are kind of unexplained and stuff. But I don't know if it needs explaining. It's just kind of a fun horror comedy, which is one of my favorite genres. And it's got some great actors in it. It's super funny, super violent in places, and just ridiculous, which I love. And I mean, Vanessa Hudgens as Lorelai, like, she's super hot. But I actually really like the Mackenzie Davis, I think her name is, the girl that played Petra. She was like super smoking cute, and is kind of a new, somebody new to me, which I'll hopefully happily watch in future productions down the road. So totally worth the watch, especially for $4 at Dollarama. I just looked at the cover and I'm like, I'm gonna like this. So for $4, yes please. Next up, we just watched this the other day, the latest Terminator, Dark Fate. And surprisingly enough, this girl here that plays one of the more significant roles is actually Petra from Freaks of Nature. So that was just like this happy coincidence. Although she looks way different in this one, because she's all kind of short hair and like very serious in it and stuff like that. So, but anyways, the story behind Dark Fate is that it starts with a brief scene in Guatemala from the year 1998. Sarah and John Connor are on the beach, kind of enjoying a bit of a respite after all their efforts to circumvent Judgment Day from ever having happened. But suddenly, from the nearby ocean, a Terminator unit, Arnie, the Arnie-looking one, pops out of the ocean, guns John down, and then disappears back into the ocean, having finally fulfilled its long-standing orders from Skynet, which Skynet had been trying to do for years. So, it then pans forward to current times. In Mexico City, there's a brother-sister named Danny and Diego Ramos, and they're just getting ready for another day, going to work. They work at an automobile manufacturing plant, and as they get about their day, we then witness the arrival of two time travelers. One is this one here, Mackenzie Davis, who plays Grace in the movie. She shows up naked, of course, which is great. Not that you get to see anything, but she shows up, some cops get up in her business, and she kind of takes care of them. The other one is a young man who doesn't have a name. He shows up and immediately goes to knock on Danny and Diego's door, and their father is there, and he informs this fellow, who he doesn't know, that they've already left for work. So a little while later, after they arrive at work and are going about their day, these two time travelers show up and immediately start blasting each other apart. And Grace, the female one, protects Danny and Diego and informs them as they escape the plant that this man chasing them is actually a robot, a Terminator unit sent from the future to kill Danny, as she plays some sort of relevant part in a potential future for the world. So they basically flee. It's like any other Terminator movie. There's somebody trying to protect this key person, and there's a Terminator unit in pursuit, and they are much harder to get rid of than anybody would hope they would be. So it turns into this highway chase, and of course, just like T2, there's a great chase scene with a big truck and shit's getting destroyed. Eventually, they get this Terminator unit catches up to them and has them cornered on the highway, but then suddenly this old woman arrives in an SUV and starts blasting it and is set to finish the job. And then that's when and Diego perishes in the chase, and that's when Danny and Grace escape in this old woman's SUV and take off and leave her in the lurch. So as they find a safe spot for a little while, Grace talks Danny down and says, "Don't go to the cops. I'm the only chance you have. That thing is virtually unkillable, and it's called a Rev 9 Terminator unit." So, which is new to us, of course. Now they suddenly Grace starts having these convulsions and stuff, and she reveals to Danny that she's actually a human, but has been modified with future tech, and her metabolism has been sped up to help her fight these intense battles against the Terminator units. But afterwards, she crashes pretty hard, and she needs like insulin or a bunch of other drugs to kind of stabilize her. So Danny helps her with that, and in the meantime, the old woman that helped them out on the highway catches up to them, and it turns out to be an aged Sarah Connor. So this threesome is tentative at first. They're all kind of up in each other's grill. They don't know exactly what the hell's going on. But Sarah and Grace compare notes. They don't necessarily like or trust each other, but they agree to form kind of a partnership with Grace's understanding of the future that they're trying to fight against with this Terminator unit, and Sarah, her experience with having dealt with this sort of thing in the past, and also knowing the current world and how they should navigate themselves around it to keep away from this Terminator. They set out to work together as a team and hopefully repel this Terminator unit. And so after some more talking, they find out that Sarah knew when this Terminator unit was coming because she's been getting these mysterious texts from this person that warns her of a Terminator incursion, and then she shows up at the date and time and place of these instructions. She gets on these texts, and there's always a Terminator there, and she deals with it. Grace goes into Sarah's phone and does some future shit, as she says, and finds out that the source of these texts are coming from a certain address in Laredo, Texas. And funny enough, the coordinates match some information that's been mysteriously tattooed on Grace's abdomen. So they're like, we're going to find a lot of answers at this place in Laredo. So they find passage across the border, and when they arrive at this address in Laredo, it's actually the Terminator, the Arnie-looking Terminator unit that killed John back in 1998. So Sarah's, of course, pissed and is like, I'm not dealing with this guy. I'm going to shoot him down. But eventually, cooler heads prevail, even though there's no love lost between, or especially for Sarah, against this unit. And they find out that this Terminator unit, who now calls himself Carl, has, once his objective was complete when he killed John Connor back in 1998, he had no further standing orders, so he kind of evolved over the years. He didn't become human, of course, because he's still just a robot, but he gained some semblance of a conscience and whatever you might think would come of that. And he now actually has his own family and has a job doing draperies, actually. So he comes up with a plan for them to steal an EMP device, which is basically the only type of weapon that can take down a Rev 9. And so the rest of the movie is just this new, I guess, foursome as they attempt to unfurl this plan to success and take down this unit and save Danny and save the future. And of course, it doesn't go as planned, so there's lots of revisions along the way and a shitload of fantastic action. So I love the movie. I think it's the best Terminator movie since T2, and it had many similar elements to that movie, which doesn't surprise me that I liked it as much as T2, because that movie was just so good. And this one kind of isn't. It's not a copycat or anything, but it's got a lot of the same elements and such, while at the same time being different enough that it's its own movie and its own progression in the whole Terminator canon, right? So highly recommend. I didn't look at reviews on this one. I'm sure they're shit, because every good movie now gets shit reviews and all the bad ones get Oscars, but that's just the world we live in these days. Next up, finally finished season 4 of Star Wars Rebels, the final season. It was an awesome show, and I always get a little emotional when certain Star Wars stories come to a close, because it is my favorite franchise. So as this season, there's only 15 episodes in the season, with the last one being a double episode, so it's almost like there's actually 16. But the season opens up with two-parters. The first one, the Rebels are on Mandalore, helping Sabine stabilize the situation there, rescue her father from the Imperials, straighten out the Mandalorian leadership situation, and also help destroy an Imperial super weapon that Sabine actually designed, so she needed to make amends there. After that, the next two-parter is the rebels hook up with Mon Mothma and the Rebel Alliance, and and plan a mission to take out or deal with an Imperial relay station that's been giving them issues. If they can dispatch this station, it'll help them because the Imperials' communications will be out of whack in the region, and they can, not get discovered and spied on and all that stuff, right? So, but at the same time, Saw Gerrera contacts Mon Mothma and berates her for not being stern enough and not doing what you have to take care of the Imperials. So on this mission to the relay station, Ezra and Sabine get discovered, but Saw swoops in at the last moment, rescues them, but he won't let them go until they help him deal with a situation involving an Imperial super weapon. And this super weapon just so happens to involve the planet Jeddah and a massive Kyber crystal. So we all know which weapon this is. So that's kind of awesome that the Death Star gets involved, right? So after those two-parters to start the season, it then settles into single episodes for the rest of the season and focuses really on the same ongoing plot for the rest of the season. The Rebels return to Lothal, which is where it all started, and their focus is to take down a factory that the Empire and Grand Admiral Thrawn have set up there to manufacture a new starship called the TIE Defender, which is deadly, the best TIE fighter yet. So as they go along, they recon it, they steal a ship and get its hyperdrive back to their base so they can get the specs on it and some intel, and then they plan. Hera gets the Rebel Alliance to help plan a raid on it to destroy the factory, but that goes awry. Hera gets captured. So then the last handful of episodes, it starts with a rescue attempt for Hera that Ezra plans. During the fracas, during the escape, Governor Price informs her stormtrooper battalion to actually fire on the Imperial fuel depot where the rebels are escaping from, in order to take them out. So in that sequence, Kanan Jarrus protects all of his allies by containing the explosion with the Force, but perishes in the explosion afterwards just before he kind of pushes the gunship away and saves all of his friends. So it comes at a price. Kanan is dead. Afterwards, Ezra is despondent. He's lost his master. He doesn't know what to do. Governor Price, in the meanwhile, she destroyed the Imperial's entire fuel supply on Lothal to take out one Jedi. So to kind of hide that from Grand Admiral Thrawn, who is away at the time, she plans an Imperial parade to celebrate the victory of destroying Kanan. But Thrawn doesn't see through it, he sees through it, and he knows what Price is up to, and he's on his way back, and he's going to discipline her. So basically, Price is about to, as we know, how the Imperials solve their discipline issues, right? So as a final handful of episodes kind of unfold, Ezra goes on a bit of a internal journey led by the Loth Wolves, which seem to show up, and they're very mysterious, and they kind of guide Ezra on what he should do next. And the next step is to go to the Jedi Temple on Lothal. So they head there, only to find an Imperial mining team trying to get into the temple very unsuccessfully. Ezra, being a Jedi, him and Sabine figure out what he has to do. He gets inside the temple, and inside this temple is almost like a mystical highway bridging space and time. So as he goes through this place and sees these different portals, he can look back on past things. The first portal he goes to, he finds Ahsoka and Darth Vader during the battle that happened at the end of the last season, and he actually pulls Ahsoka through the portal at the last minute, just as Vader's about to strike her down and saves her life. But not long afterwards, well, actually, he also sees Kanan in his last kind of act to save his friends, and that helps Ezra find some closure as Ahsoka talks him out of trying to save Kanan in an unsavable situation, and that kind of brings him to grips with everything and makes him not okay with it, but he's good going forward. And but suddenly Emperor Palpatine shows up in one of the portals and begins blasting Force lightning or Force something at them, and so they have to split up and escape through their own different portals. And so Ezra is back on Lothal. Meanwhile, we don't know what happens with Ahsoka, and Ezra, Sabine, and the rest of the rebels have to escape the temple as it explodes, and hopefully leave all the Imperials in the dust to perish in that explosion. So, having gained this knowledge and this closure, the rebels are finally ready to take on the Empire on Lothal and shut things down for good. Their first step is to recruit some other allies. They get Captain Rex and all of his retired clones in on the action. They go recruit the smuggler Hondo, who has become somewhat of an ally, I guess, over the course of the series, when he started off as more of a foe. They plan this scheme to contact Governor Price with a mole within the Rebels team and give away the Rebels base location. But when Price and the Imperials come to attack, they're going to turn the tables on them, take them out, and then use Governor Price and her station and her access codes and everything to sneak back into Lothal, round up all the Imperials under their own Protocol 13, and destroy them all and liberate Lothal. Of course, it doesn't go exactly as planned. Thrawn comes back at the last minute and throws a monkey wrench into the works, and a bunch of other stuff happens. But Ezra just may have a surprise or two up his sleeve that's going to help pull them through these unforeseen circumstances. And then after that, the series ends with kind of a nice little cutscene at the end that kind of it brings a lot of closure. It shows you where each member of the Rebels kind of goes afterwards, but also leaves things a little bit open on one front. And it's a front that I'm super happy about because I'm not going to give away too much if you haven't seen it yet, but it involves Sabine and Ahsoka working together to achieve a certain goal. And those are two of my favorite characters from the Clone Wars / Rebels animated series. I really like Ahsoka. And of course Sabine, I really like her from the Rebels series. And to see them team up with a common purpose at the end of the series, like, I hope we get to see what happens there. Like, I hope they do either a book or a video game or maybe another TV series that brings some them back into the mix and shows what happens. But so I thought that the ending was really cool, and it's just a great series. I love the Clone Wars series, and I probably like that one a little bit more than Rebels, but either way, both of these series are amazing, and such a cool continuation and fleshing out of the entire Star Wars saga, right? So it's definitely worth the watch if you haven't got started on that, but you are a Star Wars fan. Next up, I just finished this last night. This has been an ongoing battle for quite some time. Vikings, Wolves of Midgard for the PS4. People compare it to Diablo. I've never played Diablo. I'm aware of it, but I don't really know what it's all about. It's like, the story behind it is that you control either, you get to pick your character, either a female or a male. I picked a female because I like blonde Norse women with big jugs. So naturally. So I picked the female, and basically you hail from this Ulfung tribe, and you are kind of the last line of defense for Midgard, because the Frost Giants and the Fire Giants are starting to work together to some common goal. So all signs point towards Ragnarok and the end of the world, and all sorts of hell being unleashed on the Nine Realms, because this is all based in Norse mythology, like Thor and all that stuff. So you take this leader from the Ulfung tribe, and you set out on this course to prevent everything from happening. And it's one of those games where it's not just straight, these are your abilities, these are your weapons, and just go out and beat the levels. Your character evolves over time. You gain blood when you kill other enemies. You gain resources like wood and copper and all that stuff as well. And all of these resources can be used for different purposes. The blood helps you level up your character's level, which every time you gain a level, you can increase, your armor or your attack speed or your maximum health or whatever, your exposure resistance. And then with the other resources, like the more monetary ones, you can craft weapons and other resources that you need to help fight enemies along the way. And you can also, you have kind of a home hub in your village, which has like an armory, a smithy, a rune stone engraver, and you can upgrade these different locations to different levels, and with each level they go up, the weapons and armor and stuff they can provide you gets more and more powerful. So I didn't realize you could upgrade those things until like virtually the last couple levels of the game. So I was like really struggling to get through it, but I was just barely. And then on the last couple levels, after upgrading those and getting these massive weapons and armor upgrades, it was like, it was still hard to finish the last couple levels, but it was not nearly as hard as it would have been how I'd been struggling through the game earlier. So yeah, so there's so much stuff that goes into this in terms of, you know, staying on top of keeping your character as potent as you possibly can. So and then along the way, there's side missions. You can go out and just do these simple missions in destroying batches of enemies and gain more resources. If you need to level up, if you're kind of stuck and you need your character to get better, they give you options for, you know, some easy upgrades and stuff like that. So but either way, a super fun game, challenging but super fun, and it'll take you some time if you don't go at it consistently. I kind of was at it sporadically, and it took me, I don't remember when I started this game. It could be over a year now that I started it. But either way, it's super fun, super challenging, and I would recommend it to really any fan of gaming. I don't think there's anybody that would dislike that game for any reason. Then the last thing, I don't have a copy of it because it's virtual, but Mega Man 9. Son and I have been going on a Mega Man rampage. We picked up Mega Man 11 for the PS4 last year and played through it. And then after that, we're like, we may as well go through and do the whole series again. So I don't think we did 1 and 2. Or no, we did 1, but I don't think we did 2 because I just recently finished number 2 with my buddy Civ. So we did like, we started with Mega Man 11, then we did 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way up. And now we're on Mega Man 9. This is Mega Man 9. So which was just a virtual download for the Nintendo Wii back a number of years ago when the Wii was still fresh. So in Mega Man 9, the story is that for some reason Dr. Light has been framed for a bunch of robot masters that have gone out of control, gone berserk, when usually it's Dr. Wily who is obviously known as the bad guy. And but Mega Man knows it's not Dr. Light, he's the good guy. It's always Dr. Wily. So Mega Man's like, Dr. Wily, So he goes and does his regular thing to try and get Dr. Light out of trouble and uncover the truth behind, everything that's going on. So it's the standard Mega Man formula. There's 8 robot masters. You go through their levels. You beat each robot master. You gain their weapon. And that weapon is really potent against one of the other ones, so you got to figure out the right order. And then once you got all 8 beaten, you go to Wily's castle. You beat the 4 stages there. The last stage, each stage has a different boss. The last stage has a boss rush, and then the Dr. Wily boss. So it's all pretty standard. And in this game, let's see if I can remember them. Robot masters in Mega Man 9 are Magma Man, Tornado Man, Galaxy Man, Concrete Man, Splash Woman, Plug Man, and Jewel Man. Is that only 7? There might be one more, but I've kind of forgot who I've already done. Concrete Man? I might have not done him. But anyways, it's, for a virtual game done all those years later, it's pretty consistent with all the past Mega Man games. There's some other features in it, like the different upgrades and stuff you can do by collecting the screws or the bolts or whatever they are, and buying extra items like extra lives, extra E tanks, extra M tanks or W tanks, whatever they are, which kind of, it doesn't make the game, I guess it makes the game easier in a way. Not that it makes it any less challenging, but sometimes when you're really stuck on something and you can buy a full complement of lives and E tanks, it's easier to eventually get through it, right? So, but yeah, the game is fantastic. The bosses in this one are really inspired. I thought they were really different, and their levels were perfect for the boss. So, number 9 is my son's favorite game, and he's like, "Why isn't number 9 your favorite game? Why is it number 2?" And I'm like, "I won't waver." It's like, number 2 is the best. That's all there is. So we have this ongoing argument about 9 versus 2. But anyway, that's the 5 or 6, 5 things I had. Yeah, I can't even count for you today, but I'm sure we'll get right back at it because we got nothing to do. That we're not really allowed to go out and do anything, and all the businesses are shut down. So chances are I should have more and more videos coming for as long as this situation lasts. So until the next one, have a great sunny afternoon.